Hello, thank you so much for clicking on this podcast episode and choosing to listen to me. I'm so happy you're here with me, and I am really ready to just sit here and talk to you about a problem I have, pretty much. That's why I'm here. So the problem I'm having that I want to talk to you about today is people pleasing, and my absolute issue with constantly people pleasing, constantly putting other people's needs above my own. And it's just something I need to get out there because I'm completely sick of doing it. I know when I'm doing it, and I can't be the only one experiencing this and wanting to change it. So let's talk about it. What even is people pleasing? People pleasing is, this is my understanding, but it's when you prioritize other people's needs or feelings above your own and can't say no, can't set your boundaries with people, and ends up exhausting yourself to make sure that you keep other people happy, but not even thinking about your own feelings or energy or time or anything. This is obviously completely different from just straight up kindness, and it's an amazing thing, an important thing to be generous and kind and a good friend and a good person and all of those things. We know that. But there is a difference between being kind and people pleasing, and that's kind of what I wanted to explore today. I personally people please to the point where I have trouble actually advocating for myself and sticking up for myself, and it ends up creating situations for me that are like neglectful, and also I sacrifice a lot for the happiness of others when I should probably prioritise myself a little bit more. So why do I want to talk about this? Like I say, I've come to the point in my life where I am completely aware of when I'm people pleasing, and I'm just sick of it because it exhausts me, quite honestly. I realise that in a lot of situations, especially recently, I'm aware that just because I don't want to upset someone or let someone down, I will then put myself in a compromising situation. So I will lose out, whether it be emotionally, energetically, physically or financially, in so many different ways, but the other person is the person benefiting. It ends up leaving me completely drained, and I feel like I don't have the time for myself. And when your boundaries are constantly being pushed down and you're kind of not rebuilding them and allowing people to cross those boundaries, I just feel like it wipes me out. I am so sick of it. I want to change it. I don't want to just people please all the time anymore. In fact, I don't want to people please at all. I also know like the word boundaries is overused, but here I think it's so important to discuss because having those firm boundaries and also having the self-worth to stick to those firm boundaries will, I think, in my opinion, help me to people please less and help me to get out of that cycle of people pleasing, worried about upsetting people, worried about failing, worried about disappointing people, and just think, no, this is my boundary, this is what I deserve, and basically just respecting myself enough to stick to my boundaries and sometimes prioritise myself. So just an example, which kind of was a turning point for me where I was like, okay, I cannot do this people pleasing thing anymore, and I really noticed how it was affecting me, was I was in a situation at my former dance studio basically, and I actually ended up having to quit because I just felt like I was people pleasing to the extreme. I didn't feel as though I could be myself, and I felt like I just went along with a lot of things that I didn't think were appropriate or right because I was worried about being the bad person, and I was worried about disappointing others or maybe being perceived in a negative way. There were things that had gone on or things that were said and people crossing my boundaries and making me feel very uncomfortable, but I ended up blaming myself and sort of internalising it all because I didn't want to blame anyone else, and I just wanted to go along with things and not have the confrontation or make anyone like stressed out or dislike me or any of those things. When now I look back and I think, why didn't I leave sooner when I was feeling uncomfortable? Well, that was because I was so concerned about pleasing everyone else in the situation with very little thought for like my own feelings or my own mental health. So that circumstance in particular made me really tired. Like, I would just sleep for hours afterwards because I wanted to avoid any feelings of conflict. And whenever I got a message from them, I'd be stressed out because I knew I needed to say something, but I couldn't say something and I couldn't stick up for myself. And in the end, I kind of was brave. I mean, for me, it's brave because I'm terrible at sticking up for myself, and quit. I quit because I needed to. At that point, it was about to make me ill because I was just people pleasing to the extreme and I couldn't be authentic and I couldn't put myself first. And it was just this horrible cycle and environment for me. But once I actually quit and set a boundary, as to say, I will no longer be attending, just a tiny little boundary, I felt so much better and like a huge rush of relief, which really made me realise like I've been putting up with this for so long and I do deserve more. Like, from myself. I deserve more from myself. I deserve to stick up for myself. I deserve to advocate for myself. And if I feel uncomfortable, I need to be there for myself to say, this is enough. No. Another example for me is the other day I was having lunch with an old school friend and we've not seen each other for ages. And she said, you definitely apologise too much for yourself now. And she noticed that I was doing that. And then I noticed. And in a way, I think that is a sort of people-pleasing habit as well. Do you know what I mean? I say sorry if I talk too much or if I think I'm annoying, and I make myself feel as small as possible so that I'm not taking up space from the other person, even if the other person is a friend. And it's kind of a sad realisation to have as well, because if my friend was doing that, that would upset me, and I don't think anyone should feel like they have to apologise for themselves. And it was sort of a wake-up for me that my friend had noticed me doing that. And I don't want to apologise for myself. I don't want to shrink to accommodate someone else. That's not right, and I deserve more. It's so unnecessary too. Obviously, if you have to apologise for something genuinely, then that sorry means something. But I just apologise for myself, and it's not needed. I don't need to do that. And truly, I think the way to work on this is just to work on that self-worth and confidence, and just to believe in myself as I am, and to accept myself, and not try and please all the time, because the good people and the people that I connect with, I know understand me and stick around. And I don't know, it's just hard to get out of this cycle. It really is. It's hard to even explain it. I just hope this is coming across as I wish it to come across, and that you're kind of feeling my point here. I do wonder if this tendency to apologise and to shrink myself with the people pleasing comes from like the rubbish relationships I've been in the past, and that feeling of not being enough, apologising for yourself, making space for someone else, feeling like you're not deserving of that space and I'm not deserving of boundaries. And even though I'm not in that situation now, relationship-wise, it seems like this is kind of a lingering effect from that. And another reason why I want to move on from it, because, you know, I've worked so hard on myself and I just deserve better. Boundaries are so important as well. Also, just generally, I found that I always feel pressure to say yes to things, and choosing to say no when I can't do something or even don't want to do something has been kind of empowering to me. If I'm too tired or I have too much work to do, or maybe if I just need some time to myself, I will say no now. And depending on who I'm saying it to, maybe that's a kind of rearranged plan that we can do at a different time. Or maybe to someone else, it's like, no, I actually can't do that. So rather than go along with things that I don't feel comfortable doing, I'm actually saying no and choosing myself, which is a very new feeling to me. And again, I want to just say this isn't about sort of, I don't know, never thinking about another person's feelings. It is just kind of reclaiming yourself and those boundaries and respecting yourself enough to know your limits, whatever kind of limits they may be. I believe that the inability to say no probably comes from a kind of fear of letting someone down or making someone dislike me. But at the same time, if someone was in my shoes, it would be totally normal for them to say no, and I wouldn't be offended. And it's also a way of just setting that firm boundary of what you can actually achieve, emotionally as well as physically, and what you can't achieve. Ultimately, what I've learned is that even though it feels super scary to set a boundary and not people please as an automatic reaction, afterwards I just feel like euphoric because I've stood up for myself. I've made the right decision. And that's still an incredibly new and empowering and exciting feeling for me. Just to be there for myself and prioritise myself and my mental health. So, out of interest, why do people please? It could be past trauma, issues in relationships, a desire to avoid conflict, maybe a fear of losing or upsetting other people, rejection, criticism, guilt even, loneliness, and, of course, a lack of self-love. I can definitely relate to most of those, and I just want to let go of those expectations of myself, really, that are kind of left over from past relationships or friendships or trauma. And I feel like people-pleasing is almost it's never really mentioned, but it is so closely linked with self-love and self-worth and self-confidence, and self-esteem, of course. It's such a deeply linked thing that a lack of that self-worth can lead to you putting yourself in a bad situation for the benefit of others. But I just don't hear anyone talk about people-pleasing that much. I didn't even realise I was doing it until I had this situation with the dance studio. And then I kind of started to notice, wow, I do this a lot and I cannot do it anymore. And no wonder I'm tired all the time because I'm never there for myself. I'm never at home. As in self-home, not actual home, because I'm mostly always at home. So enough of that, you know my situation, but what am I actually going to do to help myself? I made a little plan. I wrote it down because I thought, for me, I need like practical plans and I need actual steps I can take when I feel that kind of temptation to people please, like, oh, go on then. No, not going to happen. I am setting boundaries. So this is my plan. I'm going to attempt to respect myself more by asserting my boundaries. I am going to know and understand my limits, for example, what I have the time or energy to do, and also what I want to do, what I desire. I'm going to spend dedicated time just by myself, with myself, doing activities that nourish me, and to not undermine that self-alone time as well, because that is important time and it is worth something. I will work on my self-worth and esteem with counselling, learning, self-love and care, all of the good stuff. I'm going to hopefully, fingers crossed, realise that I do actually deserve my own happiness and time. I'm going to take my time when I respond to people if I'm able to. So I'm going to spend a moment assessing the situation and stop myself before I go into automatic people please mode. I'm going to discover myself more and try and not just fit into other people's expectations or likes, but a kind of self-acceptance on who I am, not bending to suit others or hiding aspects of myself that maybe other people won't get along with or won't understand. Do you know what I mean? I will, of course, always maintain kindness, but also express my needs firmly when possible and know the difference between kindness and people-pleasing, because there's a huge difference. And lastly, probably one of the most important here, I'm going to value my own desires, needs and limits because they are important. Even if I don't really fully feel like they are right now, I know they are deep down. I just need a bit more self-worth. So, feels good to get that out. Big sigh. It's out in the air. And I know some of this probably sounds ridiculous. If you're a confident person, you're thinking, why were you so worried to send a message or say no to someone? But it's so hard for me, and it's almost inexplicable in my brain that someone would find this stuff easy because it just consumes me and I worry so much about letting people down. But it's just not the case, is it? I'm truly hoping that building my self-worth up will help me in sticking up for myself a little bit more and also putting my needs first. And I think just understanding that setting boundaries is not cruel. It's actually being kind to myself And in turn then I will have also energy for other people as well. But I can't do that if I'm never putting myself first. Obviously I think it's the best thing to be able to be selfless and to do nice things for other people. And I really try and do that in my life. It's something I'm super passionate about. But I think I am sometimes getting that confused with giving too much of myself and people pleasing ultimately. And I think that like setting boundaries and actually sticking to them will allow me to balance that out. So I'll be able to be kind and do stuff for people in the world, but my mental health and self-worth will hopefully be maintained as well. It's really hard, and that's partly why I'm making this, because it's good to talk about hard things and it's good to have an open conversation about these difficult subjects. If you understand and if you want to reach out, please do. My email is in the little description. It was so nice just to sit here and talk to you. And do you know what? I just feel like a weight has been lifted. Thank you so much for giving me this time and letting me talk to you about this. And if you got this far, I actually love you. Bye for now. Bye.